Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Monkey Wrench. I'm Kelly, the monkey with the wrench. Yes, I'm wearing my glasses. I keep forgetting to take them off. They're only for reading, but I forget to take them off. Today's a big day. Not only are we working on another machine, but I broke 6,000 subscribers 9 days ago. And for 9 straight days, I have gotten 100 new subscribers every single day. I am currently sitting at 6,911, and I expect to hit 7,000 today. That is just unheard of. That is 1,000 subscribers in 10 days. If I could keep those numbers up, I'll hit 10,000 in 30 days. I mean, how mind-boggling blowing is that? Thank you so much for subscribing. Hit the like button. It's somewhere between my chin and my balls. It really does help. The more likes we get, the more the algorithm will push my video to someone who's not even looking for this kind of content, who might look for similar stuff and say, oh, this looks interesting. I'll try this channel. I'll try this kind of stuff. So thank you so much for all of that, for subscribing, for everything. Today, we're going to be working on this Echo stick edger. This is Warren's. Warren is a subscriber, and he doesn't live too far away from me, and he gave me a bunch of machines. He's the guy that gave me this hedge trimmer and this old chainsaw that he said belonged to his grandmother, I guess. It's an Echo, so it's got a little bit of potential. We're going to get to that shortly. Don't forget the John Deere zero turn video that came out, the one that I got for free. It's in running condition. That video comes out this Saturday at 10 a.m. and all of my videos from now on will be premieres. That way I can sit there and speak to you guys and chat live while the video is going on. And the second part of that video, which is basically just a few little odds and ends, comes out the following Saturday. So I'm going to put those out back to back. So for today, we're going to be working on this Echo stick edger. I don't know much about it. He tried to tell me a few things about the few machines. He's going to take a dump right here where I'm working. Gotta love dogs. He tried to tell me a few things about the 3 machines, and one of them he had tried to replace fuel lines. That's not going to be this one. I don't know. Some of them he picks up from yard sales. Who knows what's going on. But the first thing I'm going to do, this is your on-off switch. I put that to the on position. I am going to, there's no fuel in it. The primer bulb feels okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is get some stuff to spray in the carb and see if we can't make this thing bark. Now, in an effort to give you guys better looking videos where you can see better what I'm doing, as I grow, especially when I'm growing as fast as I am, it's up to me to make better videos so that I grow more. So for now, I'm trying to get all of my filming where you can see it better in the camera frame best I can. I'm not a film maker, so we just do the best we can. I'm going to start by taking off this air filter cover, because that's your direct line into your carburetor. Now on a regular lawnmower, when you spray, and I just use carb cleaner, when you spray your starting fluid inside, you can give it a pretty good spray, and usually on the 3rd or 4th pull, it'll start for you, it'll bark. On these little 2 cycles, if you spray too much in there, you'll flood it before you even get started. So what I recommend to people is give it just the shortest little tiny bit of spray. Do it with the carburetor facing up so that it goes through the intake and into the cylinder. And let's just see if this thing will fire up. I am going to put the choke on, although that shouldn't matter. Make sure it's in the run position. I hate working on 2 cycles because you pull your brains out to get something to make noise. Come on. It tried. There we go. Alright, when I'm pulling the trigger here, and my trigger is not springing back the way it's supposed to, so that is that's going to have to be something that I deal with. But for the moment, we know that it's got compression and it's got spark because it did start up. So let's try it one more time. Just the tiniest bit of spray so we don't flood it. If you spray too much in there, you'll pull your brains out. It won't start. You'll walk away for 15 minutes. It'll dry out while you're gone, then you come back and pull it and it'll start. It's not the end of the world, but when you're working on these little tiny machines, you want to pull as little as possible. Running a whole lot longer than I thought it would. Okay, it's got fuel in it, but the primer bulb is not full. I wonder, oh, there we go, hang on. I wonder if he used the correct primer bulb. Yeah, I'm letting the video run because you guys are going along with me here on this. Okay, I think for starters I can hear it trying to suck in there, so I don't think there's enough fuel in there to cover up the fuel filter. Let me get some fuel and we'll fill it up and I'll be right back. It's gonna run. Now I remember, he told me that this thing runs, but when he pulls the trigger to give it RPMs, it bogs down, because I remember telling him that it could be the spark arrestor, the old Eddie Murphy Beverly Hills Cop, banana in the tailpipe. If you're blocking the exhaust, it won't run right. But it does run, so we know that it's got spark, we know it's got compression, we know it's got a carburetor issue. Let's fill up the fuel tank, see if I can get that primer bulb to stay full. Then we will check the spark arrestor, see if that's the problem. And then we will adjust and or remove the carburetor if necessary. First we're going to try and adjust it, see if we can bring this back. Alright, so I didn't even realize there was any fuel in there. I do not buy this stuff pre-mixed. I got these cans from my scrapper friend Jim, and I love them because I refill them with pre-mix and I carry them around with me on my zero turn when I go cut customers, and I always know that I grab the correct can. See, that's the other important thing. You cannot refill these at the gas station. I pick up a gallon of fuel, mix it with the oil, and then I use a funnel and I refill these. I have 2 or 3 of these. They are easy to carry around. They will fill your weed eater 4 times. And I know whenever I go to put gas into my weed eater, my stick edger, especially when it's a customer, I don't want to grab the wrong fuel can out of my shed, my shop, and put fuel in that has no oil, because then they take it home, they burn it up, and it's your fault. You got to fix that or replace it. So I've had these cans for years. That's why they're all nicked up and rusted, but they are beautiful. And I know for a fact every time I go to grab some fuel to stick into one of these machines, whether it's mine or not, I know it's pre-mixed if it's in one of these cans. I would never spend $12 on this that literally cost me $1.25 if I buy gas and buy oil and mix it myself. But it does pay to have these, because I know I never ever put straight gas in them, so I know they always have oil in them, and that means I know I'm putting gas with oil in my 2-cycle. So if you ever do decide to own a shop, excuse me, with everything going to electric, people are going to want you to fix their equipment. So if you ever do decide to own a shop, little tricks and tips along the way. Okay, the primer ball is staying about halfway full, which is good enough on one of these Echoes. Let's see if I can start it without spraying any fluid. Hey! Alright, I'm just going to let it warm up for a minute and do its thing. The idle is real low on this. Real low. So, I'm going to have to grab my adjusters and I'm going to have to adjust this carburetor. So bear with me while I go get my tools and let's up the idle. Alright, we're going to start with the most simplest adjustment, and that is the idle screw. That is just above your primer bulb and it directly touches the linkage on the top of your carburetor that works your butterfly. So what I'm going to do is just take that in about a full turn, and then that should bring the RPMs up. Oops, wrong way. That should bring the RPMs up and we can go from there. Now we still have to deal with the bogging down situation, but for right now, let's see if she'll start again. Come on, the glasses. No, okay, that's not gonna do it for sure. Let me think whether I want to pull this thing apart or not. I hate pulling them apart if I don't have to. There is another adjustment or two I can make. Okay, since I do not have the tool to pull those plugs to adjust the carburetor, I cannot find it. What I'm going to do for time's sake for this guy is I'm going to pull the carburetor and I'm going to rebuild it. Now that consists of these two screws, their Phillips head, nice and long, that hold this outer plastic part on. I'll move the camera in a minute so you can see better. We're going to start by pulling this. That should do. Make sure, because this is loose, when you pull it out, I like to put my screws at least back in place so I know where everything goes, and I know that my choke goes towards the rear of the motor. Then all that's left for this is going to be to pull my choke, or my throttle, sorry. Which, if you hold this against the carburetor and move your throttle with your thumb, you'll see that the end of that pops right out of that screw that holds it in place, and that's it. Now you can pull that out, so when it goes back in, it just goes through that screw and turns, and this little barrel holds it in place. Now all I have to do is pull my fuel lines, which I may have to go get some needle nose in order to do. There's one. Remember where your fuel lines go. Where the carburetor is, remember, on mine the black is on the inside, the gold is on the outside. If you put those on backwards, nothing will work. So make sure when you put those back on, you put them on correctly. Looks like we got some rain coming this afternoon. Alright, so that came off. I can feed that back through the hole. When the time comes, make sure that you don't mess those up either. So that's fine. I'm going to clean this. I'm going to pull it apart, and I'll be right back with you. Well, I was just going back and looking, and it didn't look like I hit the power button to begin video, and I didn't. I cleaned this thing on camera, but the camera wasn't rolling, so there it is, all cleaned up. I think we're going to be okay. We're going to go ahead and put it back together. This is what I meant by the little screw on the top. That's where the barrel goes through for the throttle. So let's go ahead and do that first. Has to go through there, find its way through. This is usually the more difficult of the bits. That's why I usually do this first. And you just have to feed the wire back through it. Come on now. It's gonna be a pain in my tits. Once you feed it back through, then you can pull it back inside of that screw by pulling on that, and then when you let it go, now you're good. Now before, my throttle did not work by itself. It's still not working right. There's a spring that's supposed to be in here that's missing, but I'm not pulling that apart. He's gonna have to deal with that. So we got that. Now we're gonna put our fuel lines back on just the way we took them off. Like I said, make sure you put them on the right way. Push them all the way up. All the way up. Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way up. Okay. Now we got that. Make sure our wires are out of the way. These are the kill wires. Make sure they're out of the way. Remember, your choke goes towards the back of the machine. Feed that through the two holes on the carburetor. Find the two holes in the body. Make it all fit together. I do not recommend using a screw gun to put these in. You will strip these out if you put too much torque on them. I have done it, and I have stripped them out too. So hopefully at this point, there was some dirt inside the carburetor and it needed a new gasket. So hopefully the idle is adjusted correctly now. Everything should be back in place. It's all tightened down. Alright. Let's move some of this stuff out of the way. Larger workspace are coming. But for now, we'll go on living separate lives. Okay, let's prime it back up. Oh yeah, that primer bulb's working much better now. Alright. Hopefully, I'm going to turn this back around so that you guys can see a little bit better. It's just that easy to pull them apart and put them back together. We still might have a bogging issue if there's a banana in the tailpipe. But let's see if it'll start and run first. And then we'll worry about whatever will be, will be. Leave in the comments you think I'm going to get it to start. I really dislike working on two cycles. They suck. But you got to do what you got to do. Put the choke on. Take the choke off. Yeah, we still have a real bad bogging issue. So the next thing I'm going to do, also because I was requested to do this, is I'm going to take off this black plastic. I really dislike working on edgers because they're so side heavy that they just go wherever the hell they want to go. So I'm going to get a clamp and clamp this down. We're going to take this side cover off. We're going to take the muffler off. And we're going to check the spark arrestor. See if the spark arrestor's clogged. If the spark arrestor's clogged, it'll run just like that. Now your spark arrestor is inside your muffler, outside your muffler. And what it does is it's just a metal screen. And when your muffler is directly attached to the combustion chamber where your piston is, where the explosions happen. So from time to time, you'll get sparks that come out. The spark arrestor is just a piece of screen that allows the air to exhaust correctly, but stops any sparks that come out so that you don't set the world on fire while you're using your machine. There's two screws, one here and one on the side between the fuel tank and your pull cord. So if you pull those two out, and on the top of there is a little hinge little piece that just fits in that little groove, and then when you put it back together, make sure everything's inside and it'll just go back in place. So what we're looking for is this right here, and this is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws in it, of course, because you know it's half the size of my dick, so it has to have 5 screws in it. And it's a little warm because it was running, and I don't want to strip out the screws. So let me go get the proper screwdriver so we don't strip them out. We're going to take that apart and I'll show you the screen. Okay, I went ahead and broke them free off camera so you wouldn't have to sit there and watch that, and I wanted to make sure they were all going to break free. Now, if you've run this in the last hour, remember, this is your muffler. It's going to be a little warm, so don't burn yourself. These screws may be a different length, so put them out in a way that you can see them all where they go, to make sure before you get them mixed up and you go trying to put something somewhere it's not supposed to go. Now this may not be the problem, but believe it or not, this is one of the most common problems, because people, you know, you're burning oil and all the oil doesn't burn in there. So it gets oily, it gets hot, and then it turns into carbon and clogs up your screen. Now so far all the screws look like they're the same length, so that makes it easier. They are all the same length, so we don't have to worry about that, putting them back together. Now I'm going to take, and I'm going to pop this off, just like that, one piece. And there's supposed to be a screen right here, and there isn't one. So let's make sure. Sometimes it's a whole cap. I don't think so. This is not supposed to be covered. I see the screen underneath, so Alright, this weird gasket has got to come off. Well, that kind of negates the fucking purpose, don't it? There's your exhaust. This is your screen. Your screen is supposed to be like that. And somebody thought it was a good idea to cover that entire screen. They clogged up the exhaust is what they fucking did. What? Why would you do that? This right here, this, I don't know if you can see that, but you see the dirty portion? I lost my screwdriver. You see how there's a line right here? Okay. This section in here is not supposed to be here. They've literally taken, this screen is perfectly clean, by the way. The screen fits right there. And then they've covered up the entire exhaust with this. I have no idea how that was working for him. That is the strangest thing that I have seen in all of today. I wonder, and they got two of them together here, which is ridiculous. It doesn't even need, I have literally taken these off, and the problem is you get sparks out, and if you're in the woods or something, you could start a fire. So you need something that's going to hold this screen in place, but it honestly fits perfectly right on there, and this is what holds it down. You don't even need, well, no wonder it wouldn't run. Somebody had this stupid thing bogging down. Now if I put that back on, that spark arrestor is in the perfect place, and this actually acts like an elbow. It actually goes this direction, then comes up and comes back out. So you don't even need the screen in there, honestly. It's we don't want to get sued bullshit by anyone. And with 5 screws, one on the bottom, one on the top, one in the back, one in the front, the screen cannot actually possibly fall out either. I am not putting these stupid gaskets back in there. They were clogging the stupid exhaust. I have no idea. I believe when I spoke to him now, he said he was using it. He got, maybe it's an edger, so he got a little bit of edging done, and then it just bogged down and it wouldn't go. I honestly do not know how the hell that thing was running at all with a completely clogged tailpipe. Now, having said that, I'll put this thing back together and we'll still have bogging issues. And if that's the case, then he's got to wait for me to Amazon order my tool that I cannot find to get the caps out of the carburetor to make adjustments to it. But I got to replace that tool anyway, because this isn't the only one I'll need it for. But for the moment, let's put this back together. That's just freaking ridiculous to me. I don't know who did that or why. It's definitely not factory, I guarantee it. The factory did not go, hey, we have a muffler, let's cover it completely over. That's, you know, so that the machine won't run. I can't believe that it had enough to get by that it could even idle. But let's find out. I'm never putting those gaskets back in. So normally I would not button this whole thing up until I was sure I'm done, but since the screen is perfectly clean, if it wasn't, I would use a pair of needle nose to hold the screen. I would heat it up with a blowtorch, and then I'd use a wire brush to clean all the carbon off of it. Usually the carbon will melt away. If it doesn't melt away on its own, a wire brush will take care of the rest, and you're good to go. That's how you clean out those screens. That's how you get to them. That's how you put them back in. They are metal screens, so you don't have to replace them. You just clean them and put them back together. Let me put this back together real quick, since it's only 2 easily accessible screws. There is a huge difference between a nice Echo or Stihl and a box store machine. This is not a box store machine. Well, it actually might be a box store machine, but they do make these better. They make them more accessible for the mechanics that work on them. You know, it used to be to get to that stupid thing, you had to take this entire cover off. You had to take out the spark plug. You had to take all kinds of crap off. Now at least it's easy to get to. This is just, if you wanted to use these, I would cut right along there and cut that center out, and that's just if you felt you needed a gasket. I don't understand what that's for. It's not going back in. That's cray cray. Let's see if this thing will start and run now. It should run in this position, but I'm just going to unclamp it. I got it clamped down so I can work on it. Let's see if it'll start, eh? Eh? It's still bogging down. It makes 0 sense. Okay, cutting the camera. Think about it. Figure it out. I'll be back. Okay, for shits and giggles, I pulled the spark plug, and it did not look great. Didn't look horrible, but it didn't look great. So let's put another one in. It's not usually the spark plug, which is why it's not my go-to move. However, barring him having done some internal damage to this somehow, I found that the bottom adjustment screw for the low end, somebody had already pulled the cap, so I was able to adjust that with my jeweler's screwdriver. That took care of some of the problem, but without being able to get to the high end, I can't get to the rest. So let's just see if a spark plug makes a difference. Sometimes it does, you'd be surprised. Nope, okay. So if all that's left at this point, we know it's not the spark arrestor, we know it's not the spark plug, we know the carburetor's been cleaned, we know that the low end is good because it's idling much better than it did. I'm gonna have to watch YouTube and see if I can figure out a way to get this top cap out. It's a metal cap. There's got to be a way. I've tried drilling them out before, but then you drill out the head of the screw, and you can't do that. So I'm gonna figure out how to get that little top cap off and see if we can't finish this adjustment. Okay, now for me it's been a few days, even though for you guys it's only been a few minutes. I have ordered a new carburetor for this. So as a recap, I pulled the spark plug, changed the spark plug. I cleaned this carburetor, I put it back on, and all I could get out of it was low idle. I could not adjust it. I then pulled the carburetor off of my personal Echo string trimmer. Now this is an older model, it's a different model, but the carburetor is exactly the same. I took that carburetor, I put it on this Echo, and I got exactly the same thing. Now I pulled the plugs on my own carburetor, so I know, oops, over here, that I could make adjustments. So I put that carburetor on here, and sure enough, it did exactly the same thing. It would run fine at idle, but when you pull the trigger, it wouldn't come up. I couldn't get it to rev up. I've also pulled the spark arrestor, made sure that was clean. There was an obstruction, somebody put an extra gasket, took that off. So then, to be sure I took my carburetor back off of this, put it back on my string trimmer, and it worked perfectly, came right up to idle, everything was fine. So the only thing that I can think of, and we're dripping gas here, the only thing that I could think of was that there's some sort of an obstruction. Maybe the fuel lines are no good, maybe one of them's collapsed, maybe the carburetor's bad, I don't know. But I've looked inside of the piston with my scope. I don't see any scoring. I've checked the compression on it. It's at 115 psi, which is more than enough. And everything else seems to be free. So what we're going to do now is put on the new carburetor. Now the carburetor comes adjusted to the machine, so I don't expect to have to. I've also run it without the filter, even though the filter it's a little bit wet. I've run it without the filter, that's not a problem. We are getting, there's water, there's fuel here. It's squeezing out. I can actually see it dribbling out. So what I'm going to do is pull this carburetor, because at this point I've checked everything I can possibly check. Compression is good, spark is good, it runs great at idle, the spark arrestor is clear, it's clean. So what we're going to do and it just occurred to me that I wonder if the fuel lines are on backwards for some reason. I've seen it before where with the fuel lines backwards, they're supposed to come out of the tank through the carburetor pressurized and go back into the tank. However, I have seen it. It is possible that if the carburetor's messed up, that you can actually reverse the lines and it'll still run. It just won't run great. So this is the last couple of things I'm going to do. Okay, this is off. We got new fuel line. This is a new fuel line setup with a new filter on it in case the filter was blocked, in case of anything like that. Okay, that gasket is still in good shape, so I'm not going to worry about putting a new one on. We're going to take that carburetor, put it to the side. Let me get a flathead screwdriver so I can get this out, and we're going to put the new fuel lines in place. And we're going to hook everything up and make sure it's good. So give me a second. Now the good thing about these fuel line setups is that all you have to do is take a screwdriver. It's all encased in a rubber grommet. Okay, we had no... That could have been the problem. We had no fuel filter on there, and this line is soft. It's hot. It's actually kind of sticking together. I'll bet you, yeah, this one's hard as a rock, like it'll break if you bend it. This one's fine. This one's perfect. This one is soft. It feels like it's been in the heat, and it's almost sticking together. And I'll bet you that as suction went on that, it was closing that fuel line off, and that's one reason we weren't getting any we couldn't get any RPMs out of it. So here's a new fuel line. We're just going to put those in place. The grommet goes in. This is your air fuel, or your air line here. So we're just going to pull those a little bit to make sure that we have enough to reach the carburetor, and put that back in place. That is too small for that hole. So what I'm going to have to do now is take these out of this. We're going to take these, see how that just pulled apart? We're going to take that stuff out, and we're going to use the original grommet. And we're going to take these and we're going to put them in. I don't know if you can see that, but the top part is flat and the bottom part is beveled to go into the tank. So I'm going to feed that through. That's just an air breather. Make sure when you put this one on that the filter comes up from the bottom so that it goes into the tank. There we go. And last one. And this happens from time to time. When they send you fuel lines, when they put these carb kits together, sometimes they grab the wrong grommet setup, the wrong size grommet, and sometimes they say on the ad or on the website that this will fit a certain thing because they're all kind of interchangeable on these, and sometimes you might have to make little changes like that. Now the carburetor is exactly the same. I've already checked that. The fun part is getting this back in the hole without tearing this grommet, because this grommet needs to be good and tight so that it seals inside the tank, because when you turn this 360 degrees to edge and stuff like that, this is a pressurized system, so you want to make sure that the fuel lines are good and tight in the grommet, and then when the grommet goes into the hole, that's also good and tight so you don't have any fuel coming out. Now I'm just going to take that, shove that back up there in its protector. This is a dust cover protector, and that just sits up in there. This one is just a return line. It just goes back into the tank. This is your fuel feed line. So I'm going to go ahead and hook those back up. If you have a problem hooking it up, you can always heat it up. I'm in a really bad position. I'm going to put those fuel lines on where I can get to it. You know what? Maybe I can do it and you guys can still watch. I like to do this stuff in real time so that you can see any little problems I might have, anything that comes off difficult. Put that on. I often say that they should make these fuel lines 2 different sizes, and on some models and makes they do. In other ones, you end up going through all this and you get the lines on and you find out they're backwards, and then you got to pull it, start again, and it's kind of a pain in the buttinsky. So for the moment, I'm just going to try and get that up there as high as I can, up onto the barbs. That's good. Okay, now there should be fuel in this. Let's see if I can get this primer bulb to prime up. Or did I put them on backwards? Stand it up, make sure we're getting fuel. There we go. We're sucking fuel. We're getting some into the primer bulb. There we go. Now we're full. Okay, so by doing that and filling up the primer bulb, I know that I have the feed line onto the feed side and the return side in the correct position. Now I want to put my throttle cable back through. First it goes through here. And these are kind of fun sometimes. I'm going to turn that just a little, because there's a wide end on one side. So you want to take this line and you need to fit it on there, and it doesn't feel like I have enough room, so this one is adjusted out completely. Let me see if I can adjust it in a little. I can always adjust it back out. This is sort of like your throttle screw on a riding mower. The farther it's out, the more tension it puts on the cable, and the less idle you are allowed to get. It gives you higher RPMs, so it's a simple adjustment. So all I'm doing is putting it all the way in to give me the maximum allowance of my cable, so that I can get my cable through here. Just gotta go the other way. Stuff moves when you're not paying attention. It has to be able to stick out that way so that I can get this cable in there. Come on, I don't really want to have to take this whole thing apart. Oh, I know what. No, that won't work either. All I have to do is get a tad bit longer. So that I can slide it through that slot. Come on, you prick. If I can get it to slide through that slot, I need like an 1/8 of an inch longer, that's it, and there's no way to make it longer. Make sure it's pulled all the way out. Alright, you've seen me do this before. I'm turning off the camera. It's 1,000 degrees out here, and I refuse to get upset today. Sometimes I'm just a big idiot. Many times as I work on these things, I still forget little dumb stuff. And in this case, the cable is not quite long enough to fit, and I forgot all I have to do is work the butterfly and give myself another 3/4 of an inch. It's plenty long enough, you idiot. I just have to now feed it into the proper spot. I understand why it is set up the way it is set up, so that once you get it in, it doesn't just pop out when you're working. I mean, I get it. If somebody knows a better way of doing this, please let me in on the secret. Because after all these years, I still struggle with this. Okay, anyway, work the butterfly. I'll be back. Now that really just did not want to go back in its spot. To get that barrel in the end of that was not fun. It took about 5 minutes. So, now that we have our throttle back on, we have our lines back on, the only thing left to make sure that we don't have any kinks in our fuel line or our return line. And then we can put our screws back in. Make sure that your center plate's in the correct way, and make sure that your choke faces the back of the machine, because that's how it goes on. Now there is a gasket that goes right here to go against here. Most of the time I don't bother to put it in, and I'll tell you why. Because you already have this exposed to the air. There's nothing on that side but the filter, and sometimes they don't give you the correct gaskets, and in my opinion, it's just not necessary. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that gasket in place. There's only 4 ways it can go. Put that back there. Put that back there. And we're going to find our hole. Like I said, I didn't replace the gasket between the carburetor and the machine because it was in good shape. If yours isn't, if it's messed up, if it's got holes in it, if half of it stuck to the carburetor when you pulled it off and the other half stuck to the machine, use a razor blade, use whatever, scrape off the gasket, clean it up, put the new gaskets in there. But that one still was in good shape. I don't feel the need to pull it off and put another one on. Now, we've already worked our primer bulb and it's full, so we know we have our lines on correctly. We also have our throttle on correctly. Now remember, I adjusted that down, so I grabbed some pliers so that I can adjust that back out too if I need to. I'm not going to worry right now about putting my air filter or air filter cover on there. Right now I want to see if our RPM problem has gotten fixed. Which I'm hopeful. It should. I can't think of anything else that would be causing that issue besides fuel lines, and that one looked like it was collapsing. So let's just see if it will start. Leave it on half choke, let it warm up. Now see, my primer bulb is empty again. Ah, okay. Let's get some fuel. I think that over the last few days while it was sitting, it just ran out of fuel. How much is in here? No, I do not buy it this way. Watch my shorts. I mix this myself. I just use these cans because I know that I pre-mix that, so I can't put straight gas into a machine that needs pre-mix. Hopefully there was enough. Can't work with an empty carburetor. Let's try this again. And as you can see, there's a brand new carburetor and it's still doing the same fucking thing. If you know why it's doing this, please let me know in the comments. I sincerely hate working on chainsaws and weed eaters. Brand new carburetor, brand new fuel lines, still will not rev up. I'll be back. Okay, I have no idea how I'm going to edit this one together. But I decided, after putting the new carburetor on and cursing in the heat, a little bit of clouds came around, I got a little air conditioning, feel a little better. I decided that I would go ahead and test the compression again. I have 2 compression testers, and I realized that I used my black case one. Let me test the compression again, see what's going on. All I did was take out the spark plug, put it in, let's give it 8 or 10 pulls. And can you see that? We are rocking 65 PSI. Just under 75. 70 PSI maybe, and that should be at least 100. So the chances are my other compression gauge, which I'm pretty sure that it has been for a while. Has been failing. They go bad from time to time. And this time we got a little over 75. Still, less than 100 PSI, this thing will not run correctly. So, that's not a problem that I purchased a new carburetor. It's not a problem that I found this out. I should have checked this with the other compression gauge. I'm going to have to throw away my other compression gauge tester, because it was showing me 110 or 115 PSI. And I realized when I was sitting in there cursing myself that I might have used the wrong one. So I probably messed up myself. Anyway, this carburetor will fit 20 different Echo models, including the one that I personally use. So it was not a waste of money. And in fact, I think I said that to Wayne the other day when I told him I was going to order one, because even if it didn't take care of the problem, I wasn't going to charge him for the part because I could use it. So I think that's what's going on here. Now the only way to know for sure is going to be to pull off this case and the muffler, and let's see if we can get in there. I'm going to move these tools, get this set up, get this clamped down. We're going to remove that muffler and see if we can see that piston. Okie dokie dokie. It's unfortunate. If the piston is scored, he told me that he just picked this up, I think from a yard sale, that he was using it. He used it once, or maybe it was the second time he used it, and then all of a sudden it wouldn't run, it wouldn't bog. Now usually when that happens, it's because you put regular fuel without mixing oil in it. Come on. That's usually what happens. People forget, you know, and they just grab the fuel can and they fill it up with fuel. They're hot, they're sweaty. They grab some gas to finish the job, and they realize when the machine goes bad, oops, they didn't put the fuel in it that had oil. That's why earlier in the video I said, and I made a short about this the other day, got a lot of views. People say, oh, I only have two sizes gas tank, 5 gallon and 1 gallon. That way I know I grabbed the right one, and that's great. Whatever you have to do to be able to make sure that you grab the correct can, that's important. But my thing is, I've even gone to the gas station with my small can, forgot to take my oil with me, and said, oh, I'll put oil in it when I get home. Filled it up, forgot about it, then went to use it and completely ruined the machine because I forgot I never put the oil in even the smaller can. What I do know is that when I use these little true cans, and I would never purchase them, these things are anywhere from 8 to 12 bucks a piece, and if you do the math and you buy a gallon's worth of fuel for $3 and you put $1 worth of oil in there, you can fill 4 of these for $4 instead of spending $8 to $12 a piece on these. But I get these from customers, they leave them in their machines. I get these from my scrapper friend. Whenever he finds them, he brings them to me, because I cannot fill this at the gas station. No matter what I do, the nozzle will not fit. So I go to the gas station and I just buy my 5 gallons of fuel. I bring it home. I put a gallon into my regular 1 gallon size. I put the appropriate amount of oil. Then I take 4 of these are 32 ounces a piece, and I have to put a funnel in the top. So then I put it in by funnel, fill these up. I've got 4 of these ready to go. I know they're pre-mixed. I can also bring these with me when I go cut lawns. They just fit in the back the shelving unit that I made, along with the weed eater rack. I have space to carry stuff like this, extra line, and I just grabbed one of these because this will fill up your weed eater 4 times. And I always know that I have premix. The average person doesn't want to go to all that trouble, and either my man Wayne did not put the proper fuel in here, or the person he bought it from didn't put the proper fuel in here. Either way, somebody shit the bed. Oh, it actually doesn't look too bad. I'm gonna get a flashlight and see if I can get you in there to see what it looks like. Alright, this is an LED flashlight. That's where the flashing is coming from. But you can see a pretty deep score right there on the right hand side of that piston. And it is pretty scored up. Hope you can see that on camera. That is about the best that I can show it. I don't think I can get any closer. But that piston is scored up. So unfortunately, this machine is a paperweight. You can obviously fix them, but on a machine like this, it's just not worth it. You know, he probably, I think he bought this at a yard sale for like 20 bucks. And like I said, the previous owner may have done the damage, may not have done the damage. We just don't know. And when you buy something used, you often don't know what the last person did to it. It's a gamble. That piston is scored up enough that instead of having 110, you can even get away with 100 psi. But anything under 100 psi and it won't run right. So unfortunately, that thing was run without oil, lost compression. And you know, if I were to pull it apart, I could hone out the cylinder. I could put in a new piston and new rings for something that was purchased for $20. You know, I've got power heads laying around. If I run out of things to fix, as long as the diameter of the shaft is correct on these machines, the fittings are all the same. I could take that motor, put it on that shaft. I could use spare parts off of that thing. The spare parts are pretty expensive. You know, if somebody comes to me and says, I have this Echo and the pull cord broke, you know, it's $34, I think, to buy the new pull cord. So if I have one laying around, then we're good to go. If I need a new shaft, and those of you that watch my channels long enough, you know that from time to time I bend shafts. I bent the shaft on that and made a video of replacing the shaft with another one that I had laying around. So for me, it's not a bad thing to have spare parts laying around. You know, the fuel tank, the pull cord, the trigger, the shaft, all kinds of stuff. But it's not worth fixing it. So I hope this video helps somebody. They're not all complete winners, and sometimes all you get out of them is spare parts. I'm gonna pull that carburetor off. I'm gonna put the muffler back on it. I'm going to put that carburetor back in the box, and I'm gonna go message him and tell him what's going on. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. We'll see you soon.